Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I have my end of the year haul for you guys. So these are all books that I have curated over the last few months. Most of the time I will try to treat myself to about 3 or 4 new books a month, and other months it ends up being a little bit more. So you guys will see the culmination of all of that. So today I have 22 books for you guys. Some of them I have already read and some of them I haven't. I'll tell you guys about my ratings for the books that I have read, give you guys a little synopsis about each book if you are curious about them, and of course I'll let you guys know where I purchased them as well, and if I can I will try to link everything in my description box below. And so let's just get right into it. The first book is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This cover is just freaking stunning. Like, look at this. Absolutely beautiful. This is a YA fantasy book about a human artist named Isabelle who is commissioned by the Autumn Fairy Prince, Rook, to paint a portrait of himself so he can hang it in his castle. So without his knowledge, she ends up actually painting human emotion on his face because she sees a glimpse of it when she's painting him. And he doesn't realize that she's done this until he takes the portrait home and unveils it in front of his entire court, and he realizes that he's been humiliated. So he decides to drag her back to the fairylands to make her sit through a trial to prove that she's guilty or something. A lot of adventures happen in the meantime, and it's just a really cute, fun story. I actually found this book because of Read with Cindy. She actually gave this book a 4-star rating, which I was shocked by because if anybody watches her videos, you know that she's very critical of stories with fairies in them, and this is definitely a fairy story, and yet she still managed to give it a 4 stars. For me, I ended up giving it a 3.5. It was definitely an enjoyable read for me. I liked that Margaret Rogerson was able to create a rich and distinctive fairy world in the span of like 300 pages. The reason I ended up giving a 3.5 instead of anything higher was because the ending really bothered me. I think that's probably the case for most people. I feel like there's a big lead up to the end and then it just kind of is done, and so I wasn't a big fan of that, but it is a really cute story overall. It is fluffy and it's adorable, and if you like that kind of stuff, you might like this book. I got this book off of Amazon, and I did read Margaret Rogerson's other book, A Sorcery of Thorns, and that's another book that I enjoyed, but it wasn't like an absolute love for me. But I do want to eventually purchase that book as well, just because the covers for these books are so beautiful, and I enjoyed it enough that I can see myself rereading it again in the future. The next 2 books are actually books that I read quite a few times in my childhood, and as an adult I just never forgot about them, and I decided, you know what, if I'm collecting books, why not collect books that I know that I've loved for years and years. And that's actually the Wishing Moon series. I think that's what it's called. This is by Michael O'Tunnell, and this is a children's fantasy novel. It's a really fun and interesting retelling of what happens after Aladdin gets the lamp and everything, after he gets the princess, and it's just such an interesting twist on the original story. I enjoyed it so much. I love the main character in this book series. She is such a fascinating character. Her name is Amina, and she's actually one of those characters where she's about 15 years old in the book, but I refuse to believe that. Like, everything that she goes through and everything, I just automatically age her up in my mind. So just to summarize it really quickly, Amina in this first book is a young beggar girl who has been orphaned, and we're following her story as she accidentally acquires the lamp. The evil, sadistic, just horrible princess of this city who Aladdin is married to tosses it at her head as a way to kind of knock her out, not knowing that it's anything of value. And it's so much fun to read about Amina's journey with figuring out how to use the lamp, how to better her life, and how to better the lives of others. It's honestly just such a fun story. I gave this a 4 stars. This is a solid 4 for me. It's a kid's book, so I can't expect too much out of it. It's not perfectly written and it's not without its plot holes, but it's such a great, fun, short read. Now, the second book I haven't read as many times because I don't enjoy this book very much. I don't see the reason why a second book was necessary, but I figured while I was picking up the first one, I might as well pick up the second one as well. I got both of these off Amazon from resellers. Anyway, the second book is just following the events of the first one shortly after, where the princess is still on a rampage to hunt Amina and her friends and family down, and it's just a hot mess, honestly. Like, a million things happen in this book, but for no reason, so it's just kind of pointless. But I am happy to have the set so I can have it forever if I ever want to read it again, which I feel like I probably will do maybe like once a year or something, because I do get the urge to reread this book every so often. Oh, and I gave this book a 2 stars out of 5. The next book that I picked up was actually on a whim. My boyfriend and I were shopping around Studio City, and there's a Barnes & Noble there, and we were just hanging out, and I happened to see this book. It's The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. I'm pretty sure this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I didn't know that when I picked it up, but I think that's what it is. And I just can't get over how gorgeous this book is. The yellow, the artwork, the deckled edges, like everything about it is just absolutely stunning. Now, I'm not a big fan of poetry, so in general, I don't read much of it because it always just goes over my head. I am not intelligent enough to try and dissect and have a conversation about poems at any level. So this is honestly, I kind of just bought this as like a coffee table book. So that's where it's gonna be pretty much the entire time. I have read a few of the poems, I haven't gone through the entire book, but I'm just really happy to have this because it's such a beautiful book. The next 3 books were also actually kind of nostalgic reads for me. I read these books when I was a little kid as well as watching the show, and it's actually the first 3 books in the Witch series. I don't know if anybody else has watched this series or has read these comics, but I was obsessed with these when I was little. So I was really excited when I saw them randomly on Amazon one day, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna pick them up. These are so nostalgic. They're really fun, and the comics are still really great, like the artwork and everything. The style I feel like I haven't seen in other comics. Not that I read many other comics. So initially I was thinking of slowly collecting every single book in this series, but there are a lot of books. I think there's like 20 of them or something, and I'm only really familiar with the first maybe 5 or so. So I think I'm just gonna stick with these for now, and if I feel like it down the road, I can always just pick them up again. But yeah, so I haven't really gotten into them too much. I read the first one and I didn't give it a rating because it was before I started rating on Goodreads. But overall, I would just say that it's a very nostalgic pick for me, and I'm really glad that I have them. Oh my god, this is literally proof of how bad I am at giving synopsises for books. I literally finished wrapping these and then I put them down and I realized I didn't even tell you guys what they were about if you were interested in them. So the basic premise is about these 5 girls who I think are high schoolers, and they become aware of these like elemental powers that they have, and the main character is the character named Will, and she's known as like the holder of the key, I guess. So I don't really remember if she has any specific power or what she really does, but the main thing is that she holds the key to activating everyone else's power, and it's obviously about them going against bad guys, trying to save their world, yada yada yada, very classic stuff, you know. These next 2 books I actually read shortly before I started my booktube channel. It was originally the books that I wanted my first video to be about. They are the Six of Crows duology in the collector's editions. I am so happy that both of these have collector's editions that match. Like, I feel like every book series that I've ever seen that has collector's edition, it's only for the first book. And I am someone who, as much as I love collector's editions of books, if there's only one of them in the series that has it, I feel like I can't deal with the fact that none of the other books match. And I don't like having multiples of the same one. I feel like that's a little excessive to me. So I was super freaking excited when I saw that both of these were collector's editions and they matched, and they just are so freaking stunning. Now, I did read both of these already. I gave Six of Crows 4.5 stars, and I gave Crooked Kingdom 5 stars. Both of these are still available on Amazon and on Book Depository, but I actually ended up getting this book from Book Depository and this one from Amazon just because the prices were a little bit cheaper on each site. Now, these books, I don't even know if I need to give a synopsis for, because if you are involved at all in the book community or in the YA fantasy community, you absolutely know what these books are about. But just in case you don't, let me enlighten you. So this series follows 6 kind of misfit characters. Basically, they're part of a gang called the Dregs in Ketterdam, which is a city in the Grishaverse created by Leigh Bardugo, and they are trying to pull off this insane heist in the first book. The second book is following up to the consequences of that, as well as some other issues that get thrown in the works. It's just a really intense, fast-paced, wild ride. Like, so much happens in these 2 books. This was originally a duology, and now there's a 3rd book coming out, but like within the span of these 2 books, so much happens and you feel so connected to the characters because of how intense everything gets. I don't want to give away too much because I feel like it's always best to kind of go into books not knowing too much, because you are able to enjoy the surprises that much more. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But if any of that sounds interesting to you, a heist story with a bunch of ragtag kids who are really badass and just just some awesome, strong, empowering characters, I would definitely check these books out. These next books I got in my October Book of the Month box. This was the book that I chose for the month. It's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I had an extra free credit, so I ended up picking up Stardaughter by Shveta Thakar, and so I'll get into Stardaughter in a second, but quickly, I just want to talk about this book. Not too much because I did talk about this in my November wrap-up. So in this story, we follow a character named Addie LaRue, who is unable to age because of a deal/curse put on her where she can't age, but she also can't be remembered by anyone that she meets. So the instant that she meets someone and she turns away or leaves the room, they instantly forget about her. So we just follow her life throughout centuries of living this horrible, kind of meaningless existence until she finally meets someone in current day who somehow magically remembers her. I don't want to, again, give away too much, but I know that a lot of people really, really love this book, but for me, it was definitely a big disappointment. I gave it a 3.5 stars, which is actually still a pretty good rating. And the only reason I gave it a 3.5 stars is because I could tell that the writing was genuinely good. Like, I can tell that V. Schwab put a lot of work into writing this book and tried to make some historical facts as accurate as possible and make it period appropriate. But I personally didn't connect with the character at all. I thought she was very annoying and the story just dragged on. It was really repetitive and I felt like most of it was pretty uninteresting, to be honest. So that's all I gotta say about that. Now for Stardaughter, I was pretty excited for this book, honestly. I try to go into pretty much every book with no expectations or low expectations because for one, I go in usually not knowing anything, so how can I expect anything? And two, I just don't want to ruin the experience by expecting it to be absolutely amazing. The only thing I knew about this book was that the cover was freaking stunning. Every edition of this book that I have seen, the limited editions and whatever, the regular edition, the non-book of the month one, all of them just freaking gorgeous. And I gotta say, this is the only other book, aside from A Heart So Fierce and Broken, which is the only book that I've DNF'd this year, that I gave 1 star. I gave this book a 1 star, which is so depressing to say because I wanted to love it for so many reasons. And I'm gonna get into that in a later video, so I won't go into too much depth right now, but basically it was just a very, very disappointing read for me. To summarize the story very quickly though, we follow Sheetal, who is a Indian American half star, half human person. And basically something happens with her father, which requires her to go on like this mission to find a cure for him, and that's pretty much all the synopsis gives you. So that's, I feel like, all I can really say. If that sounds interesting to you, maybe check it out. You might give it a better rating than I did. The next 3 books I feel like I've talked about several times, so I don't want to talk about them for too long, but basically it's the Folk of the Air series, The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing in the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions. So if you have watched my November wrap-up or my Folk of the Air reading vlog, you already know what I think about this book series, but in case you haven't, I'll just tell you really quickly. I loved all 3 of them and I gave them all very high ratings. I gave The Cruel Prince 4 stars, The Wicked King 4.5, and The Queen of Nothing 5 stars. Oddly enough, even though they're all Barnes & Noble exclusive editions, I only got the first and the last one from Barnes & Noble. The middle one, The Wicked King, was completely sold out when I checked, so I ended up having to get it off of Abe Books. There's a little bit of a dent under the dust jacket on the cover, but honestly it doesn't bother me that much. I'm just happy to have it. And if for whatever reason you don't know what this book series is about, I will just summarize it for you very, very quickly. In this book series, we are following a human character named Jude who lives in the land of Fairy in Elfheim. And basically, without giving away what happens in the entire book series, she goes through a lot of kind of crazy crap, for lack of a better word, dealing with these fairies, and especially dealing with Cardan, who is one of the fairy princes in the realm and who has this odd fixation with her. And at the beginning, obviously you think it's hatred, but I think, as we all know, that changes into something else way far down the line. So yeah, this book series is really fun. It's really intriguing. It has a lot of like court political kind of drama, which normally I'm not that into, but I felt like it was really well done. It was really intriguing and kept me on my toes. And each book is like 300 or 400 pages each, so they are actually really fast reads. If you did want to check them out, I highly recommend it. Now, these next 2 books I am super excited to get into because I just recently received them and I have not read them yet. They are the From Blood and Ash series. I got both of these in the hardcovers, which are strangely kind of hard to find. I actually ended up having to order both of them off of Barnes & Noble because they're literally impossible to find on any other website. So I don't know too much about what the book series is about. I haven't even read the inserts for either of these books. All I know is what people rave about online, which is about Poppy and Hawk, I think. So I'm just gonna read the insert right now just so I can summarize it for you because I do not have a clue. Okay, so I just read the insert of this and I truly still have no idea what this is about. Apparently Poppy is a maiden who needs to go through ascension and she's supposed to be a virgin, and she gets angry by some guard guy who I'm guessing is Hawk or the other dude. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at summarizing books because I go into them not knowing anything. So if I haven't read them, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm sorry. But basically, this is a romance story, a romance fantasy story. I actually didn't know that this was technically categorized as romance until I saw it on the Goodreads like awards nomination thing where it was in the romance category, and you see every other book and cover as like cute, fluffy, you know, like just very basic kind of romance covers. And then you get this thing, which just looks like From Blood and Ash. Like you think it's gonna be some like intense fantasy war story, and apparently it's not. It's a romance story. I'm not gonna complain about it because I've just heard really great things about the romance and the relationships that happen in this story, so I'm excited. I've heard that Jennifer L. Armentrout is planning on coming out with like 5 more books or something in this series, like 3 to 5 more books. So I have no idea what I'm getting into, but I'm really excited. I hope I love it. Okay, so the next books I was really excited for. I honestly think they were probably some of my most anticipated reads on my TBR. And now I am just a little bit disheartened about reading them, and I'll get into the reason why in a sec. But basically it's Carry On and Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I actually ended up picking up Wayward Son first because I saw somebody selling it on Depop, and I didn't even know this edition existed, but it's the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. Clearly I'm a big fan of the Barnes & Noble editions of every book, but look at this freaking cover. Like, it's so beautiful. I love anything with like stars and moons and stuff, and this cover is just one of the most beautiful bear covers I've ever seen. So obviously I had to pick it up because I knew I was gonna buy it eventually anyway, so why not buy it on sale? And the exclusive edition. And this is where it gets disappointing. So this cover I'm freaking obsessed with. It's really, really beautiful. The dust jacket, what it looks like underneath, everything. I love everything about it. This book, however, this is one of the ugliest books that I own, and that's just straight up. Like, it's not pretty, like in any way. And I saw that there was a dust jacket that was released like just as like a giveaway thing that I had no idea about because I didn't know about this book series when that was happening. So I'm super disappointed because I've checked everywhere online and there's no way for me to even buy it anywhere. But basically it's the dust jacket that would match this book cover, and so now I'm stuck with this one. And this is the most petty thing ever, but for me, when book covers don't match in a series, it really, really, really grinds my gears. Like, I hate it a lot, to the point where, like I said, I'm a little bit disheartened about reading this series now. And, you know, obviously the covers have nothing to do with the content inside. I'm sure it's still a really great, fun book series, but the fact of the matter is, every time I look at this, I'm just gonna be disappointed every time. Especially because now sitting on my shelf, they're gonna look like this, and they don't match. Like, they're from the same publishers and everything, and I don't understand why they don't match at all. And I checked and there's no other cover that could match with this. So I just have this absolutely stunning edition and then this. So I'm still gonna read it. I'm still gonna be excited about the story, but I do feel like I'm just a little bit disappointed because I was so hyped for this book series, and I didn't realize that this was the only cover available in hardcover. It was just a mess basically. So yeah, clearly I have not read them yet. I will let you guys know my ratings when I do eventually read them, but this one I got off Depop and this one I got off of Book Depository. So the only thing that I actually know about this book series, like what it's about, is the main character, his name is Simon Snow, I think, and he's known as the worst chosen one of all time or something like that. And literally when I read that, I was like, this is the book for me. I love books that actually know how shitty some of the characters are. Like, that makes it so much funnier and better. It's set in like a wizarding school. I don't know where, like if it's in the US or it's in, you know, Europe or anything like that, but it draws a lot of comparisons supposedly to Harry Potter. We don't talk about those books on my channel. Basically, those are the comparisons that are most commonly used for this book series, which isn't a big draw for me personally, but if that sounds interesting to you, then I would definitely check it out. This next book I actually got off of the same seller from Depop. I actually bundled it together, so it was like super cheap, but it's The King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and this is a thick book. Like, it's huge. It's also weirdly tall. Like, on my bookshelf, there are no other books that match this. So I have it right now on a solitary shelf on its own because nothing else suits this, and I organize my books by height. So I'm kind of disappointed that it's just so, like, first of all, kind of gaudy because the whole thing is like this weird flashy gold, and also it's like freakishly tall. So I don't know. That obviously doesn't deter my excitement for reading this book. I know that the second book in this series is coming out sometime in 2021, so I'm excited to get into that one when that comes out as well. I honestly, realistically, might wait until that book comes out to read this, because if I have the option to, I like to read books in a series together. That way it's all kind of fresh in my mind. This is again one of those books where, because I have not read it yet, I have no idea what it's about. I know that it has to do with Nikolai, who was in the original Grishaverse series, Shadow and Bone, which I actually haven't read yet and am meaning to pick up. It's just not like high on my priority list because I've heard it's not that great, because it is Leigh Bardugo's like first, I think, fantasy series, or one of her first. So I'll get to that eventually, which means I will get to this eventually. But it has to do with Nikolai and Zoya and Nina. Nina is the only character I'm really familiar with, and I'm excited to read about her, but also a little bit disappointed to see that she's going to be in this book series, because that means I don't know if she's going to be in the next Six of Crows book. I have no idea about any of that, so I guess we'll see. Yeah, I just tried to read the insert and I feel like nothing is really gonna make sense to me until I read the Shadow and Bone series, so I'll get back to you guys on that. This next book I literally received like earlier this week, and I read it pretty much right away. It's the companion novel to the Folk of the Air series, so it's How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. This title is incredibly long, and I kind of hate how long it is, because every time I write it down, like in my book journal or for anything that I write notes about, it's inconveniently long. So it's a little bit annoying, but the book itself is great. The art is amazing. I literally dove into this right after reading Stardaughter because I was so disappointed that I needed a palate cleanser. I needed something easy and quick and something that I knew I was gonna enjoy, and that was this book right here. I absolutely loved it. The art is so beautiful. It's a style that I don't see very often, if at all ever, and the idea of an illustrated storybook telling stories from Cardan's perspective, I loved that. I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. I would have rated it higher if we got a little bit more of Jude and Cardan in this, but it was mainly just stories about Cardan and his childhood, as well as a little bit of something that they're doing currently, which I don't want to spoil because that's literally half of the story. So yeah, if you are a fan of the Folk of the Air series, you either already know about this or you are going to want to know about this. I gotta say though, normally I take off all stickers on my books, no matter how like stubborn they are, because I absolutely hate the look of stickers on books. But this one I'm a little nervous about because this seems like it's really gonna be a pain in the ass, and I don't want to scratch up the cover or anything like that. So I'm a little bit wary about it. It's smaller than the usual Barnes & Noble stickers, so I might just leave it because it's not as intrusive as the usual ones, but I do eventually want to take it off when I'm feeling confident enough to. Oh, and I actually got this book off of Depop rather than Barnes & Noble because I had checked Barnes & Noble to see if it was in stock like weeks and weeks ago, and it was still available. So I was like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. And I completely forgot that Black Friday was a thing. So obviously over the last few weeks, it's been completely sold out, and I was worried that I wasn't gonna be able to get my hands on this edition because I don't know if they're gonna do another reprint or when they're going to do that. So just in case, I didn't want to miss out. So I ended up buying it off of Depop, but man, this girl really raked me over. It was literally like $20, but $10.50 in shipping. And I was like, this is 200 pages. This literally weighs nothing, and you're charging me $10.50 in shipping. It came out to $30. That's outrageous. This book is originally $15. But, you know, that's how it works when you're reselling things. And what's even more annoying actually is that a few days after I purchased it, I checked on Depop again, and literally somebody else was selling this edition, the signed version, for $30. And the shipping was only gonna be like $3. So I was like, for basically the same price, I could have gotten the signed edition. But I'm an idiot, so What else is new? We are now finally on to the last two books of this haul. Now these books are not for me. I actually purchased these for one of my good friends for Christmas. So I went ahead and got her these two thrillers. She's a big fan of thrillers and mystery and things like that, and I am not. So I don't know if these are really any good. I'm only going off of recommendations that I've seen online, but it is The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter and The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I cannot give you a real synopsis about either of these books because I know nothing about them. All I know is that they are both pretty highly rated thrillers, I think. Karen Slaughter is like a huge thriller writer. That's literally all I know. And I initially wanted to get her Pretty Girls or something, but I feel like it might be a little bit too gory and intense for her from what I've seen. And The Woman in the Window, I know that this is being made into a movie soon, and it does seem really interesting even to me. So while I might watch the movie, I'm not gonna read the book, but she might read the book and not watch the movie. So yeah, we have these two here, and I got both of these off of Barnes & Noble. They were really, really cheap. And for this book, I now understand why. This book, I bought it for $8 on Barnes & Noble. And I don't know if this is like just a really old edition or something that they had lying around in overstock, because there's this like mark on the bottom and the pages are deckled and they came a little bit folded here, but $8 was too good to pass up. Okay, so that was my end of the year haul for all the books that I have collected over the last few months from various different places. The main places that I shop are like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and Book Depository, but I do occasionally get books from Depop, Abe Books, you know, there's so many different places. I know a lot of people buy books off of eBay as well. I personally haven't bought anything from eBay since like high school, but I do know that that is a great place if you want to buy collector's editions or rarer editions of certain books. It will be pricey, but you're more likely to find it there than anywhere else. So yes, that is everything. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these books, if you are now discovering any books, if any of them sounded interesting to you, let me know. I will again link all of these books down below if I can, so you guys can get a copy if you're interested. And I hope this video was enjoyable for you. This took a very long time for me, mainly because it's such a struggle for me to figure out how to summarize books, because I don't read synopsises or summaries of books before going into them. So especially if I haven't read it before, it's a big struggle for me. I'll have to work on that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. I will see you next time, hopefully. Bye.